颜渊 Chapter 12 1. 颜渊问仁。子曰：克己复礼为仁。一日克己复礼，天下归仁焉。为人由己，而由人乎哉？颜渊曰：请问其目。子曰：非礼勿视，非礼勿听，非礼勿言，非礼勿动。颜渊曰：回虽不敏，请示思语矣。A disciple of Confucius, the favorite Yan Yuan, inquired what constituted a moral life. Confucius answered, renounce yourself and conform to the ideal of decency and good sense. If one could only, Confucius went on to say, live a moral life, renouncing himself and conforming to the ideal of decency and good sense for one single day, the world would become moral. To be moral, a man depends entirely upon himself and not upon others. The disciple then asked for practical rules to be observed in living the moral life. Confucius answered, whatsoever things are contrary to the ideal of decency and good sense, do not look upon them. Whatsoever things are contrary to the ideal of decency and good sense, do not listen to them. Whatsoever things are contrary to the ideal of decency and good sense, do not utter them with your mouth. Lastly, let nothing in whatsoever things you do, act or move, be contrary to the ideal of decency and good sense. Footnote Fuja. Dion Bayer remarked that the ancient Stoic Diogenes would be the greatest man in antiquity in Europe, if he only had decency. The first part is the self-renunciation, Ensigen, of Goethe. Stirb UN die word. Den so lang du das nicht hast. Bist du nur ein Trübergast. Auf der dunklen Erde. The second part is the imperious ideal of art, Li, of the Greeks and Italians, which in itself, as Goethe says, is religion. 2. 仲弓问仁。子曰：出门如见大宾，使民如承大祭。己所不欲，勿施于人。在邦无怨，在家无怨。仲弓曰：庸虽不敏，请示思语矣。Another disciple of Confucius on another occasion asked what constituted a moral life. Confucius answered, when going out into the world, behave always as if you were at an audience before the emperor. In dealing with the people, act as if you were at worship before God. Whatsoever things you do not wish that others should do unto you, do not do unto them. In your public wanifai in the state as well as in your private life in your family, give no one a just cause of complaint against you. The disciple then said, unworthy and remiss though I am, I shall try to make what you have just said the rule of my life. 3. 司马牛问仁。子曰：仁者其言也任。曰：其言也任，斯谓之仁矣乎？子曰：为之难，言之得无任乎？ Another disciple asked what constituted a moral character. Confucius answered, a man of moral character is one who is sparing of his words. To be sparing of words, does that alone, asked the disciple, constitute a moral character? Why, replied Confucius, when a man feels the difficulty of living a moral life, would he be otherwise than sparing of his words? 4. 司马牛问君子。子曰：君子不忧不惧。曰：不忧不惧，斯谓之君子矣乎？子曰：内省不疚，夫何忧何惧？ The same disciple asked what constituted a good and wise man. Confucius answered, a good and wise man is without anxiety and without fear. To be without anxiety and without fear, does that alone, asked the disciple, constitute a good and wise man? Why, replied Confucius, when a man finds within himself no cause for self-reproach, what has he to be anxious about? What has he to fear? 5. 司马牛忧曰：人皆有兄弟，我独亡。子夏曰：商闻之矣，死生有命，富贵在天。君子敬而无失，与人恭而有礼。四海之内，皆兄弟也。君子何患乎无兄弟也？ But the disciple of Confucius was unhappy, exclaiming often, "All men have their brothers, I alone have none." Upon which another disciple said to him, "I have heard it said that life and death are preordained, and riches and honors come from God. A good and wise man is serious and without blame. In his conduct towards others he behaves with earnestness, and with judgment and good sense. In that way he will find all men within the corners of the earth his brothers. What reason, then, has a good and wise man to complain that he has no brothers in his home?" 6. 子张问明。子曰：浸润之赠，夫受之粟，不行焉，可谓明也已矣。浸润之赠，夫受之粟，不行焉，可谓远也已矣。A disciple of Confucius inquired what constituted perspicuity. Confucius answered, "A man who can resist long-continued attempts of others to insinuate prejudice into him, or one who cannot be influenced by a sudden appeal to his own personal safety. Such a man may be considered a man of perspicuity. Indeed, a man who can resist such influence or such an appeal must be a really superior man." 7. 子贡问政。子曰：足食，足兵，民信之矣。子贡曰：必不得已而去，于斯三者何先？曰：去兵。子贡曰：必不得已而去，于斯二者何先？曰：去食。自古皆有死，民无信不立。A disciple on one occasion inquired what was essential in the government of a country. Confucius answered, "There must be sufficient food for the people, an efficient army, and confidence of the people in their rulers." But, asked the disciple then, if one were compelled to dispense with one of those three things, which one of them should go first? "Dispense with the army," replied Confucius. But still, the disciple went on to ask, if one were compelled to dispense with one of those two things remaining, which one of them should go first? "Dispense with the food," replied Confucius, "for from old men died. But without the confidence of the people in their rulers, there can be no government." 8. 及子成曰：君子至而已矣，何以文为？子贡曰：惜乎！夫子之说，君子也。四不及舌，文由至也，至由文也。虎豹之阔，由犬羊之阔。An officer of a certain state on one occasion remarked to a disciple of Confucius, saying, "A wise and good man wants only the substance. Why should he trouble about the style?" "I am sorry to hear you make such a statement," replied Confucius' disciple. "What you would say is true, but, stated in that way, it is impossible for men not to misunderstand your meaning. To be sure, the style comes out of the substance, but the substance also comes out of the style. For the substance in the skin of a tiger or a leopard is the same as the substance in the skin of a dog or a sheep." Footnote 59. Speaking of style in literature, Wordsworth says, "To be sure, it was the manner, but then, you know, the matter always comes out of the manner." Emerson's English traits. 9. 哀公问于有若曰：年饥，用不足，如之何？有若对曰：何彻乎？曰：二，无由不足，如之何其彻也？对曰：百姓足，君孰与不足？百姓不足，君孰与足？ The reigning prince of Confucius' native state on one occasion asked one of Confucius' disciples, saying, "The year now is one of scarcity. We cannot make the revenue meet the public expenditure. What should be done?" The disciple answered, "Why not tithe? Take 1/10, the people." "Why," replied the prince, "with 2/3, even, we cannot make ends meet. How should we be able to do so with 1/10? To which the disciple answered, "When the people have plenty, the prince will not want. But if the people want, the prince will not have plenty." 10. 子张问崇德，辩惑。子曰：主忠信，喜义，崇德也。爱之于其生，恶之于其死。 既欲其生，又欲其死，是祸也。诚不以富，义之以义。A disciple of Confucius inquired how to raise the moral sentiment and to dispel delusions in life. Confucius answered, "Make conscientiousness and sincerity your first principles. Act up to what is right. In that way you will raise the moral sentiment in you. You wish to live and hate to die. But while clinging to life, you yet hanker after those things which can only shorten life. That is a great delusion in life. Truly your wealth and pelf avail you not. To have what others want is all you sought." Footnote 60. A Chinese commentator believes that the verse should be transferred to chapter 16, section 12. 11. 齐景公问政于孔子。孔子对曰：君君，臣臣，父父，子子。公曰：善哉。信如君不君，臣不臣，父不父，子不子，虽有素，无德而食诸。The reigning prince of a certain state asked Confucius what was essential in the government of a country. Confucius answered, "Let the prince be a prince, and the public servant be a public servant. Let the father be a father, and let the son be a son." "It is very true," replied the prince. "Indeed, if the prince is not a prince, and the public servant is not a public servant, and if the father is not a father and the son is not a son, in such a state of things, even though I had my revenue, how should I enjoy it?" 12. 子曰：片言可以折喻者，其有也与？子路无素诺。Confucius, speaking of his disciple, the intrepid Cheng-yu, remarked, "One who can settle a dispute with half a sentence that is you, Cheng-yu's name." It was also remarked of the same disciple that he never slept a night over a promise. 13. 子曰：听讼，无由人也，必也使无讼乎？ Confucius, on one occasion after he had been appointed chief justice in his native state, remarked, "While sitting in court, in deciding upon the suits that come before me, I am no better than other men. But what I always try to do is to make even the suits unnecessary." 14. 子张问政。子曰：居之无倦，行之以忠。A disciple of Confucius inquired what was the essential thing in the conduct of the government of a country. Confucius answered, "Be patient in maturing your plan, and then carry them out with conscientiousness." 15. 子曰：君子博学于文，约之以礼，亦可以服判一服。Confucius remarked, "A man who studies extensively the arts and literature, and directs his studies with judgment and taste, is not likely to get into a wrong track." Footnote 61. Repetition of chapter 6, section 5. 16. 子曰：君子成人之美，不成人之恶。小人反是。Confucius remarked, "A good and wise man encourages men to develop the good qualities in their nature, and not their bad qualities, whereas a bad man and a fool does the very opposite." 17. 季康子问政于孔子。孔子对曰：政者，正也。子帅以政，孰敢不正？ A noble who was a minister in power in Confucius' native state asked him to define government. Government means order. Answered Confucius, "If you yourself, sir, are in order, who will dare to be disorderly?" 18. 季康子患道，问于孔子。孔子对曰：狗子之不欲，虽赏之不切。The noble mentioned above was distressed at the frequency of robberies in the country. He asked Confucius what should be done. "If you yourself," answered Confucius, "show them that you do not wish for wealth, although you should reward them for stealing, the people will not steal." 19. 季康子问政于孔子曰：如杀无道，以就有道，何如？孔子对曰：子为政，焉用杀？子欲善，而民善矣。君子之德风， 小人之得草，草上之风必偃。The same noble again asked about government, saying, What do you say to putting to death the wicked in the interests of the good? In your government, answered Confucius, why should you think it necessary to depend upon capital punishments? Wish for honesty, and the people will be honest. The moral power of the rulers is as the wind, and that of the people is as the grass. Whithersoever the wind blows, the grass is sure to bend. 20. 子张问：是何如斯可谓之达矣？子曰：何哉，而所谓达者？子张对曰：在邦必闻，在家必闻。子曰：是闻也，非达也。夫达也者，质直而好义，察言而观色，虑以下人。在邦必达，在家必达。夫闻也者，色取人而行为，居之不疑。在邦必闻，在家必闻。A disciple of Confucius inquired, What must an educated gentleman do in order to be distinguished? What do you mean by being distinguished? Asked Confucius. I mean, replied the disciple, that whether in public life or in private life will be heard of by the world. That, answered Confucius, is to be notorious, not distinguished. Now a man who is really a man of distinction is one who stands upon his own integrity and loves what is right, who forms a correct judgment of men by observing how they look as well as by regarding what they see. Reflection makes him humble in his estimate of himself as compared with other men. Such a man, whether he be in public life or in private life, will be a distinguished man. As to the notorious man, he is one who wants to be moral in his look and outward appearance, but really is not so in his life. He prides himself on such an appearance without misgiving. Such a man in public life or in private life will also certainly be heard of and known. 21. 樊迟从游于五鱼之下，曰：敢问崇德、修特、辩惑。子曰：善哉问！先识后德，非崇德语；攻其恶，无攻人之恶，非修特语；一朝之愤，忘其身，以及其亲，非惑语。A disciple of Confucius on one occasion was in Confucius' company when he went out for a walk on a terrace built for a religious purpose. The disciple then took the occasion to ask him what one should do in order to elevate the moral sentiment, to discover the secret vices and failings in one's inmost mind, and, lastly, to dispel the delusions of Leary. That is a very good question indeed, answered Confucius. Make it a rule. He then said, to work for it before you accept anything as your one. That is, perhaps, the best way to elevate moral sentiment. Make it a habit to assail your own vices and failings before you assail the vices and failings of others. That is, perhaps, the best way to discover the secret vices of your inmost mind. If a man allows himself to lose his temper and forget himself of a morning, in such a way as to become careless for the safety of his own person and for the safety of his parents and friends, is that not a case of a great delusion in life? 22. 樊迟问仁。子曰：爱人。问智。子曰：知人。樊迟未答。子曰：举直错诸枉，能使枉者直。樊迟退，见子下。曰：乡野无见于夫子而问之。子曰：举直错诸枉，能使枉者直，何谓也？子夏曰：父哉言乎！舜有天下，选于众，举高尧，不仁者远矣。汤有天下，选于众，举伊尹，不仁者远矣。The same disciple mentioned above asked, What does a moral life consist in? The moral one-ifa of a man, answered Confucius, consists in loving men. The disciple then asked, What does understanding consist in? Understanding, answered Confucius, consists in understanding men. The disciple, however, did not seem to comprehend the meaning of what was said. Thereupon Confucius went on to say, "Uphold the cause of the just, and put down every cause that is unjust in such a way that the unjust will be made just." When the disciple left, he met on the way another disciple, and said to him, "Just a little while ago I saw the master, and inquired of him what understanding consisted in, and he answered, 'Uphold the cause of the just, and put down every cause that is unjust in such a way that the unjust will be made just.'" What did he mean by that? "It is a saying," replied the other disciple, "very wide indeed in its application." When the ancient Emperor Shun came to the government of the empire and, selecting from among the people, advanced Cao Yao to be minister of justice, from that moment all immoral people disappeared. When the ancient Emperor the Great Tang came to the government of the empire and, choosing from among the people, advanced Yin to be prime minister, from that moment all immoral men disappeared. Footnotes Chapter. The Chinese word "in," which we have all along translated moral life and moral character, means literally humanity. 23. 子贡问友，子曰：“忠告而善导之，不可则止，无自辱焉。” A disciple of Confucius inquired how one should behave to a friend. Confucius answered, "Be conscientious in what you say to him. Let him on gently to what you would have him be. If you find you cannot do that, stop. Do not quarrel with him only to get insulted." 24. 曾子曰：“君子以文会友，以友辅仁。” A disciple of Confucius remarked, "A wise man makes friends by his taste for art and literature. He uses his friends to help him to live a moral life."